I'm not like, a 20 something. I grew up with some of that stuff, but I'm not that far back. Come on. Awesome. All right, I think we will turn it over to Fred. You there? We're having a mute problem. Everybody's forgetting to unmute
Oh,
tonight.
I forgot to unmute. I am here, and we have the great honor to welcome as a guest tonight someone who's actually been our guest before, Jim Clark, the lead of Stormfront, who did a fabulous job when he and his quartet were here singing on our annual show a couple of years ago. So please give a great thumbs up and a wave to Jim Clark.
Good evening.
So, Jim, I think you can do whatever you want, but I think, among other things, if you're looking for some suggestions, we always find it great to get words of wisdom from gurus such as yourself. And we always find it entertaining to hear war stories from guys who sung in quartets like Stormfront. Anything else you care to add?
Oh my. Well, you guys, you got to see us sing on the show there, and which was a joy. It was so much fun to be out there, and it was what a beautiful weekend it was all the way around. We talk about that one periodically when we have a chance to get together, which has not been really at all this last year, of course, for obvious reasons. So, but yeah, man, what fun to be able to get out there. So as you think back through that weekend of having to put up with us while we were there, any stories you want to hear about, or any of that insanity that you thought, wow, if I had a chance to find out why did they do that, or why did they not do something, or whatever, feel free to ask, because I'm at your disposal here for a little while this evening. And so yeah, but it's a little chilly here in Colorado. We had a little rain snow mix this morning, which is normal for May. So a little farther south down the road, it was snowing like to beat the band. So it's it'll stop snowing by June, maybe, something like that. So hence why I'm wearing a vest tonight, which is not normal, but I don't want to turn the heat back on in the house, so we're making do with extra layers. Springtime in the Rockies. I guess before I say anything else, does anybody have any questions about anything that has already struck you that you'd like to ask about any number of topics out there? I'll even make up answers if I don't know. Mr. Sam.
Hi there, Jim. I really enjoy Stormfront, and I just wanted to know, did you start off as a comedy quartet, or did that evolve down the road?
It actually evolved. Three of us, Darren, our baritone, Sid, our bass, and I, we all grew up watching our dad's quartet out here in the Rocky Mountain District. They were called the Cordial Celebration, and they were a comedy quartet. So three of us had grown up at the feet of these guys, and they never won a district contest. They competed rarely. They were always in the top, few of the district, but they competed more for fun and to get shows. And they did every show in the Rocky Mountain District at least once. They did most of the chapter shows twice, and a whole bunch of them three times in their almost 35 year time together. So three of us, just by osmosis, we were picking up this great slapstick timing of watching our dad's quartet and all that. But no, the first 6 years of competition, our quartet did not do exclusively comedy. We always tried to do a variety on the contest stage. We tried to do something, big up tune, tearjerker, gutbuster, a toe tapper, something that had some comedy in it, some entertainment. I mean, this is just going pure entertainment. So putting silly stuff in, but we didn't go all comedy on the contest stage until halfway through International 2007. The second song in the top 20 in 2007 was our first full-on, all-out, this is a go for broke parody, and it was a parody of Billy Joel's Don't Ask Me Why, which we brought back a year later with a different theme. That first year in 2007, it was basically all about, why do these quartets sing non-barbershop and win medals and win international? So we were making fun of all these other quartets, which was fun because then they came out on stage after us and they're trying to sing serious songs and people are laughing in the crowd. So that was fun. But from that moment, the audience went so crazy that night that we went off stage and said, well, if we make the top 10, I guess we got to make both songs in the top 10 in the comedy numbers. And that's what we did. And we won our first medal that year as a quartet. And we said, well, I guess maybe we should go all comedy now on the contest stage. So from that point forward, the next 3 years worth of international contests, it was 6 comedy songs, and then suddenly it was over. Mr. John.
Yeah. Just a question on the comedy bit. Did you guys, I mean, you're very good, and I've enjoyed you for a long time, so I get that out of the way right off the bat. But did you guys take any like formal coaching on timing and facial stuff and how to put it all together, or did you just kind of evolve into this? Because you're very, very good, you know. Somebody told me you're very good.
Well, I've heard that, but you know, people can tell lies too. So the our comedy training, as I say, it really the comedy training piece of it was not anything formal, so to speak. You know, I did musicals all 4 years of high school and the plays, and I was in competitive speech in high school all 4 years. I won the humorous prose division when I was a senior in high school, state speech. So I was a state speech champion in humorous prose when I was a senior in high school. So the training of doing that, so there's definitely a lot of stage training. But again, going back even further, starting when I mean, all 4 of us in our quartet were all second generation barbershoppers. So we all got started on stage when we were kids. I was in my first barbershop show, I think when I was 7 or 8 years old. So, I mean, we all were on stage. And then of course, with our dad's quartet, I mean, it's just that osmosis of you watch this happening, and I don't know how many hundreds of times we watched them both practice and then perform their numbers, but we could do all of that in our sleep. I mean, the timing of, you know, how they did everything. And so then we also had all 4 of us singing in other quartets before we got to this one. So there was a lot of time of being on stage and, you know, just watching. And then of course we're massive comedy fans too. So, you know, I mean, take your pick. I love both contemporary and golden age of comedy, right? I mean, growing up listening to my dad when I was 11 years old, I got a box set of cassette tapes that were the golden age of radio. And so my favorite ones to listen to, the Bob Hope show and the Bing Crosby show, where they were on each other's shows, and Abbott and Costello, and, you know, all of these great comedy that it's all audio, but you can see what they're doing because you can hear the timing, Jack Benny. And then of course, going forward, you just have one after another, you know, Tim Conway, one of my all-time favorites, Dick Van Dyke. You know, you get into the more modern era of, you know, Chevy Chase and Steve Martin and Martin Short. And I mean, the list is endless. So you just kind of start, it all just becomes, you're sucking it in. And of course, like most guys do, you see something that's funny and then you start quoting the lines to each other. So part of that is then the timing of that. But then when we got to the quartet really deciding to go all comedy, we brought in Rick LaRosa, the lead of Fred, because again, even when you think this is going to be hilarious, you still need help, and you still need somebody to help you refine and be able to try things out. And really I mean, some quartets decide that they're not going to give away their contest songs before they get to the international stage because they don't want anybody to know. They don't want the word to leak out. And of course, the year we won was the year that the smartphone came on the market. So prior to that, you know, you didn't have people videotaping everything all the time because, you know, you had to have your actual video camera. So there was less chance of it. But we decided early on, listen, if we're going to do this, we need as many chances on stage as possible. So for that 3 years, 2.5 years of 2008 through 2010, we were doing 20 plus shows a year. Almost all those were double show weekends, right? 2 show weekends. So, you know, 40 plus shows a year, 40 to 50 shows a year for those 2.5 years of competing. And most of those show weekends, we went in on a Friday night. We rehearsed all morning on Saturday, did the afternoon show. We would debrief between the shows. Then we do the evening show. We debrief before the afterglow. We sing on the afterglow, go to an everglow if there's an everglow. get up Sunday morning, rehearse all day long on Sunday, and take the last flight home. And most of those show weekends, we had at least one of our two coaches with us, so that we could do live. I mean, this is live fire exercise, especially with comedy. The timing is everything. And there is no greater teacher than doing it in front of an audience, because, this is going to be hilarious. The audience doesn't respond. And then there's this little aside thing and the audience goes crazy and you say, okay, that's out. This is in. So by the time we got to contest stage at International for those 2.5 years, most everything we'd put on the stage, on contest stage, had already been in front of audiences, 2, 3, 4 dozen times already. And that, I mean, what a great teacher. And then to have somebody like Rick LaRosa be able to come back afterwards and say, yeah, that didn't work, did it? Or, yeah, that was great. Now try this. Or, and then of course, just all the coaching. So, it wasn't any formal training like, let's go take a comedy class or something like that. But we had gotten the best comedy training ever, which is just absorb all the greats and then get to watch our own fathers do this stuff, literally at the feet, watching them do this and watching the audience respond. And you get that sixth sense of, so timing should be like this instead of timing being like that. And so a lot of it, because I get asked that question, so how do you figure out the timing? I don't know. I've just watched it all my life.
Well, thank you. Yeah, you guys seem to have done a pretty good job at it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
We'll try. I mean, we don't like each other very much, but we'll try. Other questions or comments? The burning questions of why in the world would these idiots decide to get together and sing in this quartet?
Well, I raised my hand, but I'll talk anyway. The are you guys are you still together at this point?
We are.
Are you developing anything new, you think, or?
We haven't really, for a couple of different reasons. I mean, this last year plus, obviously with the pandemic, it's hard to do anything. The other thing is that the last several years we've done fewer shows, and that's been a planned change because all of us being, our ages. Sid is 5 years younger than I am. Darren is 5 years older than I am. And Jeff is a few years older than that. So we all have kids. So there's this big expanse. So about the time we won International was about the time that suddenly then everybody's family lives got a lot more complex. So between that and then career changes going on, we just kind of had to dial back the number of shows because we said, well, we can't do everything. So it's a lot more difficult if you're not together a lot to develop new material. But we've done a lot of tweaking of things. So for various AIC shows at the International in July, that we would work up a new song or change lyrics to an old song. Last year during the pandemic, we changed the entire introduction for Where or When as an example, so that it was timely and had to do with the pandemic. Some of it we changed that night because the early part of the broadcast, there was a glitch and it kept, people were having trouble because there was a problem. They had to switch servers and whatnot. So we worked on that in the couple hours before we went on stage so we could throw in as if there's a glitch of people not refreshing their Zoom, kind of thing. So stuff like that is more what we're doing right now rather than, we have ideas about other stuff we'd like to do, but it continues to be, all right, as soon as my kids are off to college or out of college, or, like Sid this last few years, he started a new company from scratch. I mean, literally started the company from zero and now has over 100 employees and all that. So Sid is basically working 24/7. And so if he's not singing on stage or seeing his family, he's on the phone because he's working all the time. So, that's that balancing act of trying to figure out, because it is unbelievably time consuming. To be able to do comedy well, you have to do all the other things that a non-comedy quartet does well, and then you have to do the comedy on top of that. So whatever your workload is for doing, if you're thinking contest, singing, music, and performance, and you want to do all those as close to 100% as you possibly can, Now we're going to take comedy and we're going to put it on top of that, which is going to destroy all three of those categories because you're doing shtick, which makes you sing worse. So you got to figure out how to sing well and do the shtick and have it not screw up either. So suddenly, you know, your workload is increased by 4, 5, 10 times over. And so I miss the work because it was so much fun to develop all of this insanity. And at the same time, it's a great relief to not have to work on it all the time. Mr. Dwight.
The question, because Tim Conway is one of my favorite comedians, and you were pretty much look about like him, but needless to say. But anyways, what I'm wondering is you've got judges out there. The old judges, I say, okay, when you, like a lot of times you have these what I call pregnant pauses, and you're all waiting for the audience to calm down because now you've got to come back on pitch.
Right.
How do you do that?
Well,
you can only blow the pitch pipe once.
Ironically, it's not actually illegal to blow the pitch in the middle of the song, which we actually discovered partway through to make sure that was actually a preconceived thing. If there was ever a rule against that, it doesn't exist anymore and hasn't existed forever. It's just something we know. Well, you're not going to blow the pitch again because especially if your pitch is wrong in the middle, well, then you've just drawn attention to it. So, yeah. But again, you don't want to do that unless you have to, or for comedic effect. So there was two things. So if you go back and listen to the audio of those 3 international years, 2008, 9, and 10, or watch the video of it, you can hear multiple times that there will be humming going on, and it's usually Darren because he's the music guy. So he would be giving us just this little reminder. And while the audience is going crazy, and so nobody outside of the microphones can actually hear the humming going on. So until you go back and listen to it, see it, you don't actually hear the humming going on live. So there's that. But the other thing is, and this is more important, it had more to do with pitch memory than anything else. So akin to if you listen to an album of any kind 1,000,000 times, a song ends and you shut it off and you can start singing the next song in the right key and you turn it back on and you're in the right key. And so it's that pitch memory, which again is developed through the gazillion hours worth of work. So most of the time when Darren was humming, it was just reaffirming what was already in our heads. There were a couple of times that it was super hard. So like the car song that we did.
Oh, that was beautiful.
That's the hardest thing I've ever had to learn in my life. Including all the jazz stuff I've ever had to learn. That was the hardest by far. Second hardest thing was Light a Rose. But the car song, when Darren originally wrote the arrangement for the car song, he originally pitched all those songs from the Bluegrass Student Union album, from the Jukebox Saturday Night album. He put them in relative keys so it was easier to make the key changes. The problem was that when I first heard that, my ear is going, that's not going to work. We talked about it a bunch. We actually kind of learned it in those. And I said, this is going to kill us, guys. You're going to hate me, but we've got to have them actually in the pitches that they are on the album, because the barbershoppers' ears are not going to know necessarily what's wrong, but there's something wrong. And so he went back and redid the whole medley and put them in the keys they are in the album. And then we had to relearn the whole thing. And it was much better that way, but it was darn near impossible because those interval leaps make no sense at all. So near the end of that, when we get pulled over by the cop on the highway and Darren is going, ooh, that was actually the new key because we were having a heck of a time finding the next key. So you end up finding, how do we find a way to give the pitch of the next song, but it actually is part of the story. And that was the way, oh, okay. So it's not just that we notice that there's the cop pulling us over. Darren actually does the siren and it's the new key and all that. But, 99% of it was really just the work to be able to remember. I think it was 2008, maybe, that we had the introduction to, the first time we did, We've Grown Accustomed to Third Place. So that was the year after we got third place the first time. And after the intro, we had this ridiculous thing where there were these nodding heads and shaking heads. And this is all Rick LaRosa saying you should do this. Had nothing to do with anything other than, quartet guys being out of sync, and then these guys are not shaking their heads the right way, and I'm doing this, and one guy is off, and then I'm texting them and all that. So there's this ridiculously long span of time with no singing. And we didn't even know how long it was, but it truly was. You get to the end of that whole thing, and in that moment, you can't hum because there's no other noise except laughing, getting louder and softer, and truly coming back in. We've grown accustomed to third place. It was 2.5+ minutes of non-singing. So in the old days, that's like the length of an entire song. After the intro, 2.5+ minutes of no singing, and have to come back in dead on pitch. And we did, but again,
The judges say that was fantastic.
How did you do that?
How did you do that?
So it practice until you can't get it wrong. And then cheat every opportunity you get.
Do you sing in a chorus?
I direct the chorus in Colorado Springs,
Okay.
which is it's a chorus. This is the 75th year of that chapter. And but it's an average chorus, average guys who are average barbershopper age, and we got about 20-25 active guys. And so yeah, but I've been part of a chorus almost consistently since I was, again, 7-8 years old. I've almost had no time that I haven't been singing with a chorus somewhere.
Thank you.
Yeah. What else? What other burning questions? The myth behind the curtain, the sausage behind the, hang on. Yes.
You're known obviously as a comedy quartet, but as we found out when you were on our show, you guys also sing awfully well.
Thank you.
And we don't, as a chorus, do comedy by and large, but do you have any words of wisdom as to how groups should go about their rehearsing and their learning music at home in order to strive for that kind of musical excellence?
Yeah, at the heart of this, whether you're doing comedy or not, the singing is the medium by which we're delivering the message. So whatever that message is, if it's comedy message, if it's heartbreaking, if it's inspiring, if it's patriotic, it doesn't matter what it is, but the medium by which we're delivering the message is the singing. So ultimately, the goal is that the audience gets to have the best possible delivery of the message that we can give them. I mean, that's the ultimate goal for me as the performer, is to say, ultimately, what you really want to do is you really, really want to give them the best possible performance, which means best possible singing and everything else, so that they get the best version of the message. It's like the difference between what we strive for is the difference between a junior high performance of Shakespeare or a professional performance of Shakespeare, right? A middle school version of Les Miserables or a professional grade version of Les Miserables. Same music, same lyrics, same dialogue, same play, same everything. One can tear your heart out in a great way, and another one can tear your heart out because, oh my goodness, it makes me sad because it's so terrible. So, and it has to, that is what motivates me to try to be the best I can be, because I want the audience to have the best experience they can possibly have. Because if I go out and sing, if I'm going to sing something patriotic, as an example, I'm going to sing for a group of veterans, or our chorus has been lucky enough to sing for a number of naturalization ceremonies, which is great, citizenship naturalization ceremonies, which is awesome to be part of that. So if I'm part of a group that gets up there and sings badly, then I'm falling down on the job, because these people deserve the best I can possibly give them, because of what I'm trying to do. Or going out to sing for a nursing home. I mean, they deserve my best. They're going to forgive me for whatever little mistakes I make. That's fine, but they deserve to have my very best, because I'm up here for them. And if you have the audience's heart, mind, body, spirit is driving all your decisions as the performer, which means the guy who's practicing as well, it becomes easier to work harder on it because you want to be the person in that audience who has that unbelievable experience. And you don't want somebody getting up there and doing a half a job for you when you're in the audience. So I don't want to be the one up there giving it half when I'm up there. So all of that behind how do you rehearse? Number one is actually rehearsing. That's our biggest mistake usually. Just like when we were children taking piano lessons or horn lessons or whatever other lessons that the music teacher every week says, so how much you practice this week? Oh, a lot. Really? That's weird because it's worse this week than it was the week before. That's the hardest thing for we amateurs to do, is to say, I actually am going to rehearse 15, 20, 30 minutes a day. And by the way, that doesn't mean cram 30 minutes into your day. You can do 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there and 10 minutes there. And you can find a way to put those things in that don't upset your life, but some actual shorter but focused work on what do I need to work on and how you rehearse as well. Oh my gosh, I got to learn this song. Okay, start on measure 1 and go straight through to the end of measure 65. All right, start over again at measure 1 and go straight through the end and try to memorize it like that. Nope. Start with the first 8 bars, maybe the first 16. Then you do the next 8, and you do the next 8 that many times, and then you repeat and start at the beginning to go through that. Now you move on. So you actually break it up, which again, we amateurs are not great at that because we think, oh gosh, rehearsal, it starts in 48 minutes. I was supposed to memorize that song. Okay, I'm going to take the learning track and I'm going to just cram it 48 straight minutes over and over again. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. Maybe you remember the first 5 words, and that's about it. So that strategic idea of how am I going to do this? Things like the night, like when you go to bed at night, reading the lyrics of a song before you go to bed at night, reading the lyrics to the song when you get up in the morning. It's just little ways to help your brain learn and recall things more effectively. And then as far as, keeping the vocal instrument in shape, it truly, again, it comes back to good vocal habits, good vocal training, teaching, taking those things, and then truly rehearsing every day, remembering to sing every day and not sing poorly every day, but try to sing, do all the exercises that we need to do to keep the instrument in shape and getting better. And if all of us do just a little bit more of that every single day, it's amazing how far we can go in 1 year's time as an ensemble, right? A chorus can get, if every member of the chorus gets this much better in 1 year, that means the chorus gets way better, right? So that's, to me, those are the things. It's block and tackle. That's part of what makes it so weird for us is we like to have quick answers. If I just do this one thing, it'll be fixed. We barbershoppers have a bad habit of that. All I have to do is this and then it'll be fine, as opposed to every day you got to get up and do the same thing. And well, I'll do it later. I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do it next week. I didn't have a chance this week. I'll do it next week. We have a really bad habit of doing that, and it's human nature. So getting out of that habit. And so how do you motivate yourself to get out of that habit? A million different ways. But for me, again, it's about the audience, and it's about not letting my fellow singers down, right? That's a great motivation. If you don't want to be the weak link in the quartet or the weak link in the chorus, and you don't want to be the weak link in front of the audience, it's amazing how much a little work can do. Does that help?
Yes, it did.
Back again, Jim.
Yes.
To all the guys that are watching, watch how he speaks. It's almost like he sings. His facial voice, it just amazes me. We've been teaching people how to sing.
Sure.
And I'm watching how you talk. It's like you speak music along with you not even singing. Your mouth and the smile. You always have the smile. They say, "Get these up."
Right.
you know, and do this and, you know, do all these things. You do it just by talking, looks like to me. That's my
that Irish gift of gab that's come down through the generations to me, as it were. So
You said you had allocution training, didn't you?
there was between the taking voice lessons when I was in junior high to start with, and then through high school, and then again being in all of the stuff on stage that I could do in my high school I wanted to do, and being in competitive speech was just a blast, because for me it was fun to be able to, again, I'd been performing since I was, I mean, long before I was officially performing, I was performing for my family, because you start hamming it up and they start laughing. Well, that's great, I'll do that again. And but being able to actually get great training from the speech teacher and the speech coaches that I had, as well as then, I had a phenomenal drama teacher when it came to the plays that we put on when I was in high school, and then being in the musical all 4 years, and then going right, I mean, continuing all of that, being preceded and then throughout being on stage for barbershop shows. So, I mean, I would have no idea how to, I did this with our current quartet, but I would have no idea how to quantify this for my entire life. But, our quartet, if I went back, this quartet has been together for 20 years. So if I just kind of rough out between the shows and the contests and all that, how many individual song performances we've had in the last 20 years of actually performing songs on stage, it's got to be way north of 7,000, like 7,500 individual song performances in 20 years, just with that quartet, which doesn't take into account the amount of rehearsing on top of that, which is going to be, I don't know, 5 times that or more, and so experience being that incredible teacher, which again, we barbershoppers tend to not give ourselves enough time in front of audiences. We tend to say, especially chapters, right? Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to have our annual show, and we're going to have a holiday show, and then maybe some other sing-outs. But we really spend all of our time working on this and working on that, and maybe contests. So it's really only a handful of performances a year, rather than, it would be great if we could perform 20 times a year. Because if we could do 20 performances a year, that's way more than we have been doing. And if we individually analyze each performance, we tend to get a lot better. I mean, that was something that our quartet did all the time. We would, especially when we were still in contest mode, we would record every show. We would have, before we had these to record with, we had little digital recorders, and we would set them places in the auditorium and turn them on so we could record the show, and then we'd listen on the way home on the plane and through the week, and we would analyze ourselves and what happened with the quartet, and what did I sound like and what do I need to fix. And so, and we did it because we loved it, and it was so much fun to get better. To say, hey, we're better than we were a few months ago. Hey, that's better than it was. Hey, I keep having this trouble here. Can you guys help me? And just such a joy to be able to do that. And, for me personally, being such a fan of language, and whether it's comedy or drama, the impact that speaking can have, and the impact that singing can have, that a performance can be life-changing for the people who are taking that performance in. So whether that's film or audio or stage or church, or, I mean, it doesn't matter what it is, that if someone has a message that needs to be heard, then that means that they deserve the very best I can give them. So I better not be, sandbagging my way through this performance, because then I've let everybody down. So I better not let everybody down. I better give it my all.
Jim,
Carl,
you've mentioned competitive speech a couple of times. I've never heard of competitive speech, and I'm wondering, what is it? And is there something that we can learn from it?
So different, it's changed over time. Different states, they'll call it forensics in high schools. It's more often called forensics now in high school. But but I grew up in the state of Nebraska, and so it was just called speech. And multiple different categories that you could compete in. So there would be humorous prose was one, informative speeches, entertainment speeches, which is something you made up yourself, persuasive speaking, oral interpretation of drama, which was like 3 to 5 people doing. And so it was, you would take cuttings of various things. There was duet acting and whatnot. And so if it was an informative speech, it was truly, you had to take a topic and then you'd write an informative speech and then you would deliver that. So for starting in the fall and running all the way through the spring is the speech season. And so all these high schools would travel around to each other's schools. And so everybody in a region would host a speech meet on a different Saturday. And it would be 2 qualifying rounds and then a finals round. And so you're competing against everybody who is in that category. So, you know, there could be 3, 4, 5, 10 other kids, depending on how many schools and how many want to do that, who are competing against each other. And there'd be a judge sitting in there and you'd be timed. So you only have this much time. And then the judge would write down, I mean, it's very similar to being on a barbershop contest stage. It's just speaking instead of, it's speaking and performing instead of the singing aspect of it as well. So yeah, I did that for 4 years. And so again, speaking of being on stage, I was in front of audience. I was in front of a lot of audiences over the years. And it was always educational for me because the competitive aspect of me liked to go last when I was doing speech because I wanted to hear what everybody else was doing, because my brain at that point was like, all right, now I know how well I have to do in order to beat everybody else in this room. Which was, I mean, that's whatever motivates you. So yeah, but I know it still goes on here in the state of Colorado. Competitive speech in high schools is still a thing. And but yeah, I know that I can't remember the national, there's a national qualifiers thing as well, that state speech champions can qualify for the national whatever and whatnot. So I know it's still out there, but yeah, it was very educational.
Oh, thank you, Jim.
You bet.
You know, I've heard it said that we are actors who sing. And it sounds like you've used all of these various approaches in order to come to the same end, which is to be able to perform at the highest level you can.
Yep. Yeah, and I will tell you that the performing from the heart is really what it's all about. You know, I mean, the number of performances, especially when I was a kid, before I was really competing. I started going to international contests when I was 9 years old. 1983 was my first international contest. And the thing of it is that there are as many performances that I remember in my lifetime that came from groups that were not the champs as there were from those who won, because of something they did or how they did it or how they delivered the message. When I was in college, I took my then girlfriend. We've been married now for 22 years, but she was a vocal ed major, fantastic soprano voice, and Kathleen Battle came to town. You know, one of the greatest operatic sopranos, and I got us tickets 4th row center to watch her put on this clinic. I mean, it was just, you know, it's a recital basically. And so here's the grand piano. She had an accompanist and she came out. And it was great, but it was basically 2 hours of her coming out and singing, you know, this really heavy operatic stuff and then go off stage and come out and do more and then go off stage. And the audience loved it. And then she did 4 encores. And the 4th encore, she came out with no accompanist. And she came out to the middle of the stage and she started to sing. And again, this is a concert hall, so there's no miking, not that she needed one. And she starts singing, above my head, I hear music in the air, above my head. So slow, totally interp, sang all the verses, dead silent in there. And when she was done, everybody came absolutely unglued. We're on our feet before we know it. It went on and on and on because it was her heart coming out there. I cannot tell you a single other song she sang that night, and no one else could either, because the rest of it was very much left brain clinical. This is a true, oh my gosh, this is one of the most amazing voices I've ever heard. Still, for the last 2 hours, still one of the most amazing voices I've ever heard. And then she finally comes out and sings this thing that is just her soul coming out. And we lost it. And so that being the essence of what we're doing, we want to sing as well as we possibly can, but if there's no heart behind it, then who cares? Now let's see, we've got Jim has had his hand up here for a long time electronically, so let's do that, and then we'll go to Marshall after that. So Mr. Jim.
Yeah, so in your 20-year journey, if my memory is correct, you changed tenors at some point. At what point was that, and how difficult was that? How difficult was it to find the right person, and how difficult was for the three of you and him to make it all come together?
Yeah, that change happened late 2007. So we won our first medal, our third place medal in 2007 with our original tenor. Then we had a parting of the ways that fall. And that really amounted to, you know, if you don't have all four members who want the same thing in the same way,
right,
you know, it's a relationship that just doesn't work. And so we parted ways. And then in our search for a new tenor, we had a few different guys audition. And by that point in time, Sid, our bass, was living in Atlanta. So we already had two of us in Denver, and Sid was in Atlanta. And he was driving to work every day with Eric King, who was, I think, the second tenor of Riptide. And Eric said to Sid one morning, as they're talking about barbershop, he said, you know, you really should call Jeff Solano about singing tenor with you guys. And Sid said, you mean the bass of Riptide? And Eric said, yeah. And Sid said, has he ever sung tenor before in a quartet? Well, no, but okay. But Eric was sure this is the guy for you. So Sid had lunch with him one day, and Sid called Darren and me separately that evening to say, I think we may have found our guy. And so then we had an audition with him. And it was really, again, it was all about the heart. It was all about what he wanted, because in their lunch, he asked Sid a whole host of questions. And it wasn't until he got through all these questions about, tell me about your wives, tell me about your kids, tell me about your goals. How does this affect the families? It was all about, how does this affect your family life, before he ever got to talking about the quartet and competing and any of that kind of stuff. And so that was a big deal for us, because our priority always has been family, career, that all comes first. Family's got to come first. This is for fun, and it cannot destroy our lives. So, you know, and that, it was great to have that. And then it made perfect sense, right? I mean, I had switched from tenor to lead, and Darren had switched from bass to baritone. So it made perfect sense that we're looking for a tenor in a comedy quartet. We're going to get a bass from a non-comedy quartet and have him be tenor in our comedy quartet. And so if you want to talk about the transition for Jeff, you really should talk to Jeff, because it was massively entertaining that to have Jeff in those early weeks saying, okay, so what am I supposed to do? What are you talking about? Well, I mean, tell me, give me, he wanted stage instructions basically. So how am I supposed to react to this or react to that? Or what's my character, or how do I do this? And I said to him early on, just roll with it. What? I mean, he was not used at all to just giving no instructions. We're going into those. I mean, he joined officially January 1st of 2008. And from there till international of 2008, we were together 12 times. So he's never sung tenor in a quartet before. He's never sung in a comedy quartet before. We've just gotten third place at international. Talk about being thrown into the fire. So he's in a panic. We had 6 times together in prelims, and then 6 more times in international. And he was just panicked. What am I supposed to do? How do I mean, so should I react like this, react like that, or how? And I said, we're going to do enough shows. You'll get used to it. It'll take care of it. So his his persona of being the guy who had no idea what was going on to stage right of him, it worked perfectly, because that became the new things. We're just playing with the fact that Jeff is going, I have no idea. I don't understand what's happening over here. That's perfect. So it truly was that development of saying, this is going to be different than it was, and how do we just absorb him in here and change it a little bit, and we're going to create a new dish, if you will, out of these new ingredients. And so it was highly stressful for him, not as stressful for us. He spent that first 6 months just beating himself up over, it's going to be my fault, you're going to fall out of the medals, and then it's going to be my fault. And so 2008, we go in and we came in 6th. So we fell out of the medals. So he's up there on stage. Oh my gosh, it was my fault. We fell out of the medals. And I told him, it's not your fault. It was great. We had a great time. It doesn't matter that you were the tenor. This is a brand new quartet. Look at those scores. It's going to be fine. And so then a year goes by, 2009, we get back in the medals. We got 3rd place again. And so we get 3rd place. Everything's broken up. It's the end. It's Keep the Whole World Singing. Hey, he comes over to us. He says, oh, I'm so glad we're back in the medals after last year. And I said to him, hey, no problem, back in the medals. And then I said, and by the way, it was your fault. That is the longest I've ever waited for a punchline in my life. 12 months I've been waiting to be able to drop that hammer on him, which he thought was hilarious, by the way. That's timing.
That's great.
You got to know when or not. Let's see. Marshall, you had your hand up.
Yes. In 1948, I received a medal for oratory from Hamden Academy in high school.
Nice.
So that's public speaking, I think it was called.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So that's around.
You bet.
Did you sing with the Denver?
I did. With Sound of the Rockies. I sang with Sound of the Rockies for about 15 years.
Give me a time frame, please.
Yeah. So the year 2000 through 2016, I guess, was my last international that I sang with those guys.
Okay. We were there. My wife and I were there with another couple in Denver.
Yeah.
And I just happened to read the paper about a show. We were staying down at the dam. The
by Cherry
Corps
Creek,
of Engineers. Yeah. And so I said, hey, we're going to a barbershop show tonight. So we went up there and found the place and got tickets. And I had to use the men's room. So I went down the stairs. And I'm walking towards the men's room. And I said, that walks like Steve Jamison. And sure enough, it was. So I says, what are you doing down here? He says, Marshall, what are you doing here? So we had a little mini reunion. Yep. Dr. Mom was the MC.
Nice.
That year. And I saw Barbara was there in the 3rd row. She was a character.
This barbershop world of ours.
Yeah.
What else can I make up for you? Sam.
Hi again. Did your quartet do that brass number before Jeff Solano became your tenor?
Yeah, the Bugler's Holiday. That's talk about lightning striking 3 times. So Darren and I sang in a quartet in the 90s in the Central States District that we called Free Fall. And that was where Darren came up with that idea. Darren, again, our baritone, Darren was a trumpet major in college, so he can play anything, which is why he's playing first trumpet when we do the buglers. And he realized that our old quartet in the 90s, we had 3 trumpet players and a trombone player. And so that was the first quartet we did that. And so the 50th anniversary of the Central States District in 96 was kind of the big debut of that number. We had 96, 95, 96, I think it was. So we had practiced it throughout like the first part of the year, and then we kind of debuted it for the whole district there. But, we never thought that would happen again. So when we put this quartet together in 2001, again, we realized that Darren, trumpet player, I was still in the quartet, trumpet player. Sid had played trumpet into high school. And then our original tenor, though he was a sax player, he had played marching baritone a few summers when he was doing marching band. So we did it again in the original configuration of this quartet. Then when we had the part change and Sid was having lunch with Jeff, and they get to the end of everything, and then Jeff says, so what about this Bugler's Holiday thing? And Sid says, it's not a big deal, it's just, it was just something that was fun, but and Jeff said, well, I used to play trombone. So again, just the idea that this could happen not once but 3 times in 3 different configurations and have the right combination of people to sort of almost be able to play it okay is just crazy. So yeah, and that, I mean, talk about a way to completely unhinge the audience in a way that nobody's expecting. And so again, that is a bit that started in the mid 90s and is just sort of morphed over time a little bit, but it's not very different from the way we did it originally. To say, so how many times can we, give this comic feint to the audience, right? You got these horns out here, they're going to play horns, right? All right, we're going to blow into them. No, we're going to blow the pitch. Oh, well, that's funny because they're going to play horns, so they're blowing the pitch. Ha, 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 that's funny. And then they start singing. Well, okay, you got me. You're obviously not going to play. I thought you were going to play, then you're not going to play, and I think you're going to play. Now you're not going to play. And then after we sing the introduction, then we do start playing. So it's like all the way around. And then, again, this is a Darren idea going all the way back to the beginning, 25 years ago. What if we put a barbershop tag on the end? Right. So that's just I mean, if you want to talk about the pile driving haymaker situation, just nail in the coffin that barbershoppers absolutely lose their minds. You get to the end of that instead of to end it like it's written originally to go into a tag, right? And barbershoppers just lose their minds, which is fun. It's fun to be on the other side of that. On our side, the most fun thing about that is to see who's going to fall apart on any given performance. Because again, speaking of not practicing, if you're not doing 20 shows a year and not playing your horn all the time, guess what happens to your lip? It leaves. And so it's funnier and funnier to say, all right, so who's going to be the guy who can't play his horn tonight? And whose lip is going to die first? And what kind of weird sounds are going to be squawking out of whose horn tonight? So yeah, it's as entertaining for us as it is for the audience, especially seeing what happens with Jeff on the other end of the quartet. That's the most entertaining. Is the trombone actually going to fly apart at the seams, or is he just going to collapse? Or yeah, so you just never know. Other questions? Yes, John.
Okay. I just happened to notice that one thing that you just brought out, and which I'm in a quartet now, we're getting started and we're all geriatrics, but we're having a really good time. But the one thing that you pointed out just now that I think we got to think about, and maybe a lot of people should, is you got to be willing to laugh at yourself. Oh, yes. You got to be willing to go out there, do your best. And if you screw up, you go, or something. But I'm going to keep that in mind, because, we're amateurs and we're starting kind of late in quartet wise. Well, not all of us, but I think that's going to be a very important quality for me. I think it's going to be good for our quartet and maybe for a lot of people. So I'll just throw that out and see what you happen to think about that. Thank you very much.
Yep, you bet. Yeah, the ability to not take yourself too seriously is always important, and trying to find the right balance, right? Because again, if you have 2 guys in the quartet who really, by gosh, I want to win district, or I want to go to international, or you've got some lofty goal that this is what's driving me, and then 2 guys are like, yeah, I don't care if it's in tune or not, that's going to be a problem, right? But even when you align your goals to say, we want to get much better than we are, we want to be the best singing group we possibly can be, what you set some goals, you make some, we did our bass Sid called them levels of happiness. That's what he liked to refer to them as. We set a series of goals, right? We want to get at least here, and then our next level would be here, and we'd really like to, and I'd be super happy if, so that you had stretch goals, you can call them, or something. I really want to achieve something. What's our way down the road kind of goal, and then what's in between there, and then what's something that's easy, and so that you have these things to strive for, because it's a lot easier to work towards something than it is to just kind of, let's just rehearse every week and then see what happens. Well, that's boring, frankly, and you're not going to go anywhere, nor, more importantly, inspire any audiences if you just kind of get together and, if you really only want to sing for yourselves, then just sing for yourselves. But if you want to sing for audiences, you want to be better and better because you want to do more for those audiences. But then again, to have that other side of it, which is to say, hey, if we want to go compete and we don't get what we want out of the contest, it's okay. We were here. We got on stage. We did what we wanted to do. Now you go talk to the judges and say, how can we get better? Right? I will tell you right now, judges love to hear from quartets who don't want to come in and pout about how low they got scored, but to find out, so what did we do that made you give us that score, and what can we do to fix that? Because if you come in with that attitude, contest gets way more fun for us too. Lifetimes of competing, and when we finally started saying, who cares what the high scoring judge gave us? It's the low scoring judges we want to fix, because if we can bring those guys up. So we wanted to talk to the guys who gave us the worst scores. Tell us what we did. What didn't you like? And then never taking yourself seriously enough to say, you know what, sun's going to come up tomorrow. I still got friends and family. I still got another shot at this thing. I get to go sing for another audience. And if you're doing comedy, especially, there's nothing more disarming than self-deprecating humor. Okay, if you're going to be willing to make fun of yourself on stage, even if what that means is just speaking to the audience, that you're willing to have a sense of humor as you're talking to them and you're totally comfortable, you put the audience at ease, and then they love you, because there's nothing more unnerving for an audience to watch a quartet come out on stage blow it again. Right? You're just, as the audience member, you want to die on behalf of the performer, not because you think they're terrible, but because you know how painful that is. And you're just saying, oh, please, please, you're trying to will them across the stage so they'll survive. And you don't want to do that to an audience. You want an audience to be able to just enjoy. And boy, putting them at ease by not taking yourself too seriously, absolutely. Trying to pretend that things didn't happen, right? It's like talking to an audience and there's a child screaming in the background, but by gosh, this is what I decided to say, and so this is what I'm going to say, and I'm going to pretend this is not happening. As opposed to the performer who incorporates that into what they're talking about, right? Because then it's, it's like pretending there's not a fly flying around kind of a thing. It's not actually there. If I don't see it, then they don't see it. Actually, they do. So yeah, always realizing that the audience wants nothing more than for you to succeed. And so they are your greatest allies when you're on stage. They're your greatest fans. So if you come out on stage with an attitude, for a genuine attitude that there's nowhere else on earth I would rather be right at this moment than right here, right now, performing for you, that takes you half the way home or more. Because the audience knows from the moment you hit the stage, ooh, this is going to be bad. They haven't heard anything. They're like, oh, I'm already afraid for them. Or, oh, this is great. I'm already at ease because I know they're just going to come out here and have a great time. That's what you want to give to the audience before they even hear a note you sing. And if they feel that, then they hear you sing a lot better, maybe even better than we actually sing. If they're enjoying it, they're hearing a lot better stuff than we're actually giving out. That's why we do comedy.
Just a follow up is, when I said that, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Yeah. When I said that, I wasn't thinking that I didn't want to do as a really good job, as good a job as we can do.
Sure.
And I just mentioned one other thing that I thought of when you're talking is when I was in graduate school, I went to a concert and I was sitting 15 feet away from Louis Armstrong.
Yes.
To this day, I feel like he was just singing to me. He was
Yes.
just entertaining me.
Yep.
And that's got to be a gift. But anyway, I just throw that out. If you could do that, that's kind of what you're saying. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And Louis was he was a groundbreaker. You know, if you ever get a chance, if you haven't, or even if you have, go back and rewatch it. The Ken Burns documentary on jazz, right? The jazz documentary that Ken Burns did. And of course, Louis Armstrong is a critical piece of all of that. I mean, talk about reshaping the musical landscape and the performance landscape and the social landscape and all that stuff, that he was such a genuine performer, whether he was singing or whether he was playing the horn, it was one and the same, which is why he could go in and out of either one. But it didn't matter. All of the barriers were broken down completely because no one who heard nor saw him could avoid being completely drawn in by the performance, which meant they didn't care about, you have to go see this guy. Yeah, but social norms say that I can't. It doesn't matter. You got to say, we got to get this guy in here. It's amazing. So absolutely, those kind of performances where you just feel like you don't even realize the rest of the audience is around, you are sucked in to what that performer is doing. Oh, it's transformational. And you just say, yeah, I can't get enough of that. Give me more. Dude, the show can't be over yet. No, do another one. And that's what you want as a performer. Always leave them wanting more. Okay. If you do 2 songs and that's 2 songs too many, there's other work to be done. What other questions?
Jim, if there are no other questions, our hour is up. So let me ask first.
Sure.
If I don't want to keep you if you have to go, but if you've got a few more minutes, let me ask if anyone else has any more questions. If not, then we can let you go. Anyone have any more questions for Jim?
Hey, Fred, if I can step in, I do have one quick one.
Yes, sir.
I have to ask Jim, because you said the quartet, anytime a quartet's been together, as long as you guys have, there have to be some absolutely fantastic stories of either some of your favorite moments, some amazing moments with the quartet, something just so funny and ridiculous that nobody would believe it ever happened. Obviously, we could probably do this all night with 20 years of quartet history, but what's one of your most favorite stories?
Oh, geez.
From the 20 years of the quartet.
That's right. No, I actually have another, 15, 20 minutes to kill here. So, I'm good. You don't have to rush. I mean, you guys can leave whenever you want to. I could talk all night. I tell you, there are so many. It's hard to pin down, the favorites. There are so many wonderfully ridiculous things. The number of times that one guy shows up with the wrong color suit, it's happened way more times than you'd think, which is great, because then we got 3 and 1, and then the audience is wondering, was that on purpose? And then when you're a comedy quartet, nobody knows. There was the time that we showed up for a show, thunderstorms across the Midwest. We were singing in Indiana, I think, or Ohio, but we landed in Indiana, and the 2 guys coming from Georgia at that point, they were delayed until the middle of the night and had to land in Indianapolis or something, or Fort Wayne. Their clothes went one place and they went another. And so for the first show, we only had 2 guys with suits and the other guys had their street clothes. So what we did, instead of having all in our street clothes, or 2 in suits and 2, we mixed and matched. So everybody had this combination of, one guy's got a suit coat on, but he's got shorts on. And so that it looked absolutely horrible. And it was great because we told the audience up front what had happened and no one believed us. They thought it was all part of the gag, right? Which is, again, you start trying to be serious with an audience, but they never really know, are you being serious or not? Are you really being serious or not? When it's that kind of thing, the number of times. There's the time that, let's see, we did it was Rocky Mountain District, well, it was Hep School back then, but like Harmony College, and it was up in Estes Park. And so 3 of us got there early, and Jeff opens up his trombone case and he can't find his mouthpiece for his trombone. So he's cursing, this has got to be TSA, they've taken my mouthpiece and whatnot. And so we realized that Sid is coming in a little bit later. He still hasn't started the drive up. We call him, say, hey, in Longmont, Colorado, there's this music store. Stop and buy another trombone mouthpiece for Jeff. Problem solved, we're going to be fine. Sid gets up there another hour and a half later. Hey, it's all good. We don't even think about it. The show's later, hours later, we're getting ready for the show. Jeff takes the trombone mouthpiece out. Nope, it's the wrong size. That shank will not actually fit this is the wrong caliber, as it were, to fit in the trumpet. So now we're back to square zero, no trombone. So Jeff had his microphone. So the other three of us played our trumpets, and he sang the trombone part. Doom, 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 doom. And so you can hear it because it was cranked up, and the audience went crazy. And we get to the end. And the best part is that we get to the end and we cut off and we take the bow. And Darren bows a second time, and then he turns to Jeff and he says, "Go home and break your trombone." So, stuff like that. The invention of the comedy routines is, some of those stories are epic. Light a Rose. Let's see, the 2008 going into 2009, right? We got through 2008. We said, okay, it's fine. Now we've got a whole year before 2009. It's going to be great. An entire year to prepare. Okay, we're going to have 6 songs. It's going to be wonderful. So by the time we get to the end of the year, we have 6 songs for international. And then we come out of the Christmas break and we have 4 songs because 2 of them just weren't working. And so 4 songs, 4 solid new songs going into the prelims there. And we come out of prelims and we have 2 songs. 4 of the 6 just were not coming together. So now it's March. International is around the corner. We've qualified for international. We're back to saying we desperately need 4 songs. What are we going to do? So every conversation is about what are we going to do? And so that the end of March, we're sitting in Des Moines, and Sid and I are backstage, and the other 2 guys are out of the room, and Sid suddenly says, "You know what we should do? We should do Light a Rose." And I said, "What?" He said, "I know the Music Man upside down and backwards." "Really, Light a Rose?" He said, "No, just hear me out." So we do the first verse like normal, right? And then the second verse, we do the women's part, but we do it in the women's key. And then in the third verse, somehow they end up mashed together or something. And I said, okay, so we're going to put a pin in this, but there's no possible way we can sing the women's descant part in the women's key. That's an octave higher and we will die. But let's put that aside for a second. So he and I start talking through how that would work. We had done the old exploding sheet music trick with what was it? The 12 Days of Christmas mashup song. And it worked great. And we had been saying for years, we need to have a song where we can do that on contest stage. And I said, that would be the perfect thing. The music goes everywhere. And that's why the third verse is all mashed up. It's great. Wonderful. The other 2 guys come back in. We're rolling on the floor laughing, saying, this is the new idea. And said, great. And then we said, Darren, take it away, Mr. Arranger. So Darren goes to international, gets the double quartet version, which was Mo Rector and Nancy Bergman, I think, did that arrangement, got permission to tear it apart. So that third verse, he just started taking the 2 systems and then plugging them in together. So he has to rewrite the whole thing in finale. And, that third verse makes no sense whatsoever. It makes absolutely no sense, right? The lead part, dream light a rose of now again rose to get the dream back in of then. Dream light of a love again, a song about a thou that kiss have shy. What? It makes no sense. So we don't get that chart until, gosh, mid-April, late April, finally, right? International is the first week of July. All right, now we're trying to learn the song. I'm trying to record a lead track for these guys to work on. I can't get through the song because it makes no sense in my little brain. So then we have, let's see, it was the end of May, the last weekend of May, we had a gig outside of Camp Lejeune, and we spent 10 hours driving in a van from Atlanta up there, and we were working on all the other stuff for international, and 10 hours back to Atlanta, and then Darren and I flew home. We had time to run through Light a Rose once in the hotel room before we went to the show. That was it. 2 weeks later, we have a gig in Traverse City, Michigan. We spent a lot more time just singing through the chart. And I mean just singing through it, just trying to survive the chart. 2 weeks after that is the Friday before international. We took the day off. We spent all day working on stuff. That night was our Go for the Gold show for the chorus, and we got to sing it. That afternoon was when we're working again with Rick LaRosa. We're like, we don't know how do we get from the women's key to the men's key? And he said, oh, you just need a music stand to go up and down. Brilliant. Okay. So all of the shtick was put in that day. First public performance is that night. The next performance of that song was the following Thursday on International Contest stage in Anaheim in 2009. So the second time we ever sang that song in front of an audience was the International Contest stage in the top 20 in 2009. I wouldn't recommend that as a way to do it, as a matter of course, but yeah, I mean, those are the kinds of things that you just like, you walk away from it. And I was possibly never more excited to sing a song on contest stage than that one at that stage of the game. I knew it was going to be rough. I knew it had problems. It has flies all over it, but you know what? This audience is going to appreciate this song like no other audience anywhere, and I can't wait to perform it. I don't even remember what the first song was. I just want to get to Light a Rose. So yeah, you never know what may happen with that kind of stuff. But I'll leave you with this in terms of stories, and I can talk after this too if you'd like me to. You know, that this whole, why do we do what we do? And I go back to, winning a gold medal is fun. That's great. But my fondest memories are still doing things like my hometown chapter chorus, going out to sing for the retirement homes, the nursing homes every holiday season, getting to see the impact that has on people whose lives are not enjoyable for the most part, that they're not enjoying life for the most part. And here, and this is when I'm elementary school age, the first time I get to literally see the power of music, to be standing there and realize that I've gotten to be part of this group. We get to come in and we get to take this burden off of these listeners for just a little while, for 20, 30, 40 minutes. We get to take their burden off their shoulders. We get to take this horrible whatever it is off of their hearts, and they get to enjoy something, and somebody cares enough. So again, that's a gold medal moment for me, that kind of stuff. So this would have been, I think, 2012. Our quartet had a massive weekend. We sang at the Sweet Adelines International Convention on Friday night. We sang at their Cornet Club show. And we got done with that and raced out to Denver International Airport to get a red eye to Pittsburgh, I believe, where we had shows that weekend. So again, no sleep, take a nap in the morning. Once we get there, the insanity, we go in to do the afternoon show, and everybody is really in good voice, which made no sense at all. The afternoon audience was like an evening audience. They were crazy. So, wow, this is crazy. And our voices kept getting stronger. Then we go to the evening show, and the evening audience was totally insane. It was like an insane contest audience. Don't know what's going on. And we're getting better and better as we go through the night, to the point where when somebody's up at the mic talking, others are back behind going, what is happening here? Well, don't jinx it, whatever you do, And there was this family sitting in the front row that were they were dressed up, suits and ties and dresses. There's this little girl, like 5 years old, in the front row, this white dress on, and she was the laugher of all laughers. I mean, it was, being a connoisseur of a good laugh. I mean, I wanted to do more just to make her laugh more, because it was such a brilliantly joyful laugh. It was amazing. And then we go to the afterglow, which was the gymnasium, and there's, I don't know how many hundreds of people came to the afterglow. And there's a gazillion chapter quartets. So we didn't sing until after midnight or near midnight. So it's way after midnight when we get to the end of the night. And we finish the night with Bring Him Home from Les Mis, right? So the complete turnaround, of course, from all the insanity we've done. We end with Bring Him Home, and the place goes crazy. And, we're wearing our radioactive lime green suits and all that. And so, you get done with a weekend like that, and you're standing out in the hallway and you're thinking, job well done. It makes you feel good. I mean, look at what we were able to give these audiences this weekend. This is why we do this. This is great. And as I'm standing there in the crowd, I look over and there's some guy who's holding that little girl from the evening show. I didn't know they were at the afterglow. And she's not asleep, but she's almost out. So, she's staring she's looking around, and of course she sees me, because how can you miss me? My suit has a half-life of 3.5 million years. So she catches my eye, so I give her this little wave and this huge grin right across her, like, that's great. And the matriarch of this group sees me and she comes racing over to say, oh my gosh, it was so great. You were on the show and shaking my hand, and the type of interchange you're expecting. And the little girl is still eyeballing me, so I wave again, and now she's got a big smile on her face. And this lady sees that and she says, she said, oh yeah, that's my granddaughter. And I said, oh, well, that's fantastic. She's got the best laugh I've ever heard. This is so wonderful. I'm so glad we were here. And she said, well, yeah, I mean, we almost didn't come to the show. And I said, really? And she said, yeah, it's been a weird week. It's been a really rough week. And I said, why is that? And she said, well, her father, my son, died this week. Which is not how that conversation is supposed to go, right? And I said, of course, I'm so sorry, And she said, it was sudden, it was unexpected, it came out of nowhere. And she said, we're all trying to, get through it. But the worst part has been that she has not, she hasn't been herself. It's like she's, numb from this, and she hasn't really reacted. And so we get through the week, and then, this we didn't even know if we were going to come to the show because the funeral was today. We came straight from the funeral to the show tonight, and we just didn't know if we were going to do it mostly because we were worried about her. So we sat through the first half of the show, and we thought about leaving at the intermission, but we didn't. And again, we're just worried about her. And then she said, but when you guys came out on stage and you started to sing, and we saw her smile, and we heard her laugh, we knew she was going to be okay. And then tonight, when you guys sang Bring Him Home, we knew the rest of us were going to be okay. And that's that moment when you say, yeah, metal schmetal. Nothing compares to that. What we do, this little 4-part harmony thing, yeah, don't ever underestimate. There should never, ever be any barber shame on our part about this. There should never be any kind of feeling of inadequacy, because when you bring you to the stage and you bring that genuine heart to the stage and you genuinely put yourself on the line and you are there for the joy and enjoyment of the audience out there, to take whatever their burden is off of them for a little bit of time, you are doing unbelievably good work. So contests are fun, but they don't hold a candle to what we can do for audiences every time we have a chance to get out in front of them, which is why the pandemic has been so horrible for us, because we haven't had that chance to get out there and sing for people and change their lives when we're out there in front of them. So don't give up, don't despair, keep after this, keep singing, keep practicing on your own, get back together in person as soon as you safely can, because the audience is out there more desperate than ever for what you have to bring to bear. So don't ever underestimate the power you have to change somebody's life through your just being there, just showing up, just singing for them. Okay, because nobody else really does. So go forth and do.
Thanks, Jim. You've been just fabulous. Everybody give a barbershop wave to Jim Clark.
My pleasure.
I do want to remind folks that Thursday we have a big wingding for the entire division. I encourage everyone to attend via Zoom. I want you to know I intend to be there myself. I may or may not be able to because I'm having surgery on Thursday. And if I'm still under the influence of the anesthesia, you may not want me to be there. But I'll be there if I can. Marshall, did you want to say anything about it?
Yes, thank you. The word is out. This will be on the NED website, and please show up. We're going to start right out. The site will be open at 6:30. I plan to be there. Come on out and shoot the whatever until 7 o'clock, and then we have all kinds of things planned. And We have breakout rooms. You can pick your choice of whatever breakout room you want at that time. We have reviews from presidents and others of all the chapters in Maine and New Hampshire. And I just happen to be representing the state of Maine, and it's called the Pine Division. So we're going to give them a bunch of pine cones. Anyway, that's Thursday night, this May 6th. Look for the news. Our Bruce is going to send that out a couple of times, as well as Dan Falcone. He's going to send that out again. So pay attention to your email, please. And if you have questions, you know my number, ding me up and I'll help you out. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Marshall. Is there any other business for the good of the chapter? I have one other item. The last Monday of this month, the 31st, happens to be Memorial Day, when we normally do not have a meeting. And unless the members of the board who are present here tonight tell me otherwise, I'm assuming that we will not have a meeting on May 31st. Hearing no dissent, I will make it so and turn it over to George.
Before you do, Fred, I believe Jim had his hand up. He had a point of business as well.
No, I just want to, I do have to hop off here in just a moment. I got to take my son to a baseball workout, which is great. But before I go, first of all, thanks for having me on here. It's always a joy to see, even from afar. I mean, this is the only blessing of being stuck to where we have to meet virtually, is that we can actually meet virtually like this. So I can talk to people across the country, around the world. It's fantastic. So it's great to see all these faces on here. It was a pleasure to be with you here this evening. I know that you, by the way, I know that you have guys up there in your territory who work for Harmony Foundation, but don't listen to them because they don't know what they're talking about. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just saying that if you do have any Harmony Foundation questions, you can reach out to me as well. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, talk to you about any of the great stuff that's going on with the foundation as well. But I wanted to make sure to let you know that, especially if, those other guys who work that area up there responsible for NED, for the foundation, if they're not doing their job, you can always come to me. I just want to let you know that I'm more than willing to be your guy and take over from those slackers who, no, I'm going off the rails. I'm sorry. But anyway, I just wanted to, again, thank you for tonight. Always a pleasure to talk shop and more. Everybody stay healthy, keep singing, and let me know what I can do for you.
Okay, now I turn it over to George.